You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
Friends, the Wenz is on vacation. So without further ado, your favorite interviews, vignettes, and snippets compiled into one show. Enjoy. Candor is taboo these days. Saying what you think and feel can get you in a lot of trouble, even if you're right. This seems to be especially true in the sports world. We see it time and again. Post-game pressers with the coach downplaying his own team's accomplishments, meanwhile celebrating the opposition's mediocrity. What if people said what they actually mean? This notion has opened up the door for a segment we like to call, What Do You Really Mean?
So, Coach, congratulations on winning the state title. How do you feel right now?
Well, Skip, first of all, I'd like to tip my hat to the opposition. You know, they're very well coached, a great game plan. They have very young, talented players. And our guys just happen to get in the right spot for the right shot and sink them.
Coach, what do you really mean?
So, Coach, congratulations on winning the state title. How do you feel right now?
Well, Skip, first of all, I'd like to tip my hat to the opposition for just not being as good as we are. Their coach gets the schemes from video game playbooks. His game plan is redundant, predictable, and lacks any creativity. Their players are immature, undisciplined, and careless with every possession. Our players, on the other hand, are fundamentally superior, stronger, faster, and smarter. We use these competitive advantages to pummel those guys.
Right!
I'm in Wenz World, and I love it.
We all know how the media machine can exaggerate news stories and make us fearful and hysterical over practically nothing. With the Summer Olympics just right around the corner, live in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the country itself is facing a lot of challenges, including the looming threat of the Zika virus, amongst other things. In fact, some of these concerns have led certain members of the U.S. Olympic team to not make the trip to Brazil, including members of the men's basketball team. Joining us to sort through all of this is Mike Korolchik, CEO of Spartacus Strategies. He's a leading libertarian activist, a health guru, sports analyst, and a contributor to Daily Surge and Clash Daily. Mike, how are you?
Well, Joey, I'm doing well, but listen, I'm the first one to say it seems every Olympics there's a threat. Maybe some athletes won't go, or the country's not ready. Let's be clear here. Brazil is an unmitigated disaster. Just a week ago, they were looking. The vice president of the Olympics himself said this is the worst he's ever seen, and they had talked to London officials to see if they could be ready as a few weeks from now, a week before the start, to take over.
Wow.
This isn't some little small thing. There are so many things it crosses from the traditional corruption in countries, but more importantly, too, there's not a way they can get around the healthcare scare, the security scares, and more, and the operational disaster. So when you put that all together, it's a mess. And I put some amazing tidbits together for your show, which I know your listeners are going to really appreciate because they love to hear the gory details. And start off with what, Joey? Right now, 75% of the sewage from Brazil gets thrown right into their bay, the waterway, and it's not treated. That bay is where all the water sports, including swimming, is going to be held at. So they were supposed to, when they had this $5 to $10 billion, Brazil was supposed to take care and treat the waterway for all the citizens and give them clean water. It's not being done. Instead, because they're so low on cash, the way they can figure it out how to clean this water, and when I say dirty water, it's 1.3 million times more toxic than water we consider hazardous. So imagine the Jersey Shore in the 1980s times 1 million, and that's how dirty this water is. And there's animal carcasses, all their nasty plastic stuff floating in. So their answer is to hire some guys in eco boats to get the dead animals out, and that's going to be the water for boating and yachting and what have you. That's going to be in the Olympics. That's the first thing, Joey. That's pretty nice. The second thing that really is going to get people fired up, if you've been to Brazil, and I used to go to Brazil twice a year because I'd go to the Miss Bum Bum competition, which, folks, there's not more beautiful women alive. They have the best butts in the world. They have a competition, 500 girls. They wean it down to the top 100. And Joey, number 499 would be number one in America. I'm talking girls with butts out of this world.
Thus the 2 a.m. Brazilian butt lift infomercial, right?
Yes, exactly. And there's a reason why that's why we want the Brazilian butts. But here's the thing: you've now got you can't go there because they were supposed to build this subway that would get 300,000 people to the Olympic venues. But the subway's not going to be completed, so that means you're going to have to take one of those old Brazilian buses with no air conditioning around the most rocky roads. And if you watch Dangerous Roads in America, they're always filled with Brazilian roads that crash. The buses go over the hills. And about once a week, 50 people croak. That's how you're going to get to the Olympics. It's going to be a 3 to 4 hour ride. And now we get to the real deal. Joey, you brought up to me a lot of the athletes aren't going to go, especially basketball players. Joey, what do basketball players really love most in the world besides money?
Oh, well, I guess it depends on who you're talking to. What do you think they love most in the world next to money?
Beautiful women. That's why I go to Brazil. Okay? You can't have sex with these beautiful women because Zika virus is transmitted sexually, as is dung fever. So you got 1.7 million Brazilian ladies with dung fever and 1.5 million with Zika virus. It's ground zero for these diseases. So you're going to go there where you're going to be swimming in raw sewage. You've got women that might have Zika, and how do you check to see if you got Zika? The tests are so primitive. So you can't even have fun. And get this, folks, the athletes, another way they're going to cut costs down because Brazil's out of money, is they're going to make the athletes pay for air conditioning and no one's getting TVs in their room.
Let me play devil's advocate for just a second because I did a little bit of research. I've never been to Brazil, so you got me on that. You've gone twice a year for God knows how many years. That's awesome, first of all. And I would love to see the competition you speak of eventually. Hope my wife's not listening. But with all that said, it's going to be about 50 degrees. We're going to be in wintertime for Brazil. And much of the Zika contraction is happening in middle Brazil, far north of where the Olympic Games are going to be taking place. And there again, we had the World Cup back there in 2014, and only 3 of the 1 million tourists who visited Brazil for the tournament contracted dengue fever. So how do you respond to that where, hey, let's not get hysterical. Most people that get Zika virus don't show any symptoms. The people that it affects the most are people who are sexually active, as you mentioned, and the babies that are potentially inside of these ladies.
Well, here's what I would say to that. If you listen to the top experts, and this is not Michael speaking or Joey speaking, this is World Health Organization, they should not be having the Olympics here because you can't control the tourists coming in and out of countries. We have tourists from all around the world coming down, and you're right about the diseases being 100 miles further north, but those northerners are going to come for the Olympics.
Right.
And you can't control you. The first thing you do with a disease like Zika, or the fever, is what? Isolation and what? Containment. The Olympics is bringing them all in.
Yeah.
And it gets even worse. Besides the Zika and controlling the diseases and the raw sewage, there's actually an enzyme, a disease called the KPC superbug, which is bacteria resistance that's in that water, and they've been finding hundreds of cases of it. So your athletes are going to get that on top of everything else.
All right, Michael, let's take a turn here, and let's just say that Zika isn't even on the forefront of anybody's mind heading down there. It's a non-issue. What are some things that the media isn't covering that we might need to know about based upon your experience in Brazil?
Let's talk about something that really hits home, terrorism. Now, as of today, Joey, right now, I checked at 9 o'clock this morning, Brazil has yet to buy a metal detector or a scanner. They don't have any money. Folks, if you think that's crazy, listen to this. Let alone not having money for scanners and metal detectors, they can't pay their police. So right now, the police are 3 to 4 months behind in paychecks. Many are quitting. Most of their government workers are 3 to 4 months behind, and the retirees haven't been paid because all that money went to the Olympics. Now, it's so bad that police stations are asking the local communities to donate paper, pens, and toilet paper.
Wow.
And that's who's going to be protecting your athletes.
And you're not going to hear this stuff on the mainstream media circuit. Again, if you're just joining us, we are with CEO of Spartacus Strategies, Michael Karolczyk, a libertarian activist, a health guru. I saw that on your picture, dude. You're freaking ripped. You're like WWE ripped out there.
We try to keep in shape, but most importantly, I keep in shape by making my women into beautiful goddesses. And, Joe, if you go to my Spartacus Strategies IG, you'll see the most beautiful women I've created and made into the healthy, sexy goddesses that would call their own in Brazil. But they don't have Zika. They don't have skunk fever. And I don't make them swim in sewage with KPC and superbugs trying to attack them. So it's a much better thing if you want to have fun to go visit one of my gyms instead of Brazil this year. But, this is why it's not just a one-stop shop with the problems of Brazil. You got the subway transportation. You've got the diseases. You've got the sewage issue. And then on top of that, we haven't even gotten to the real scary thing of terrorism, which we just touched, the political unrest. All these things I've just described, the people are angry. The people are nasty. I challenge you, Joey, to go watch City of God. It's an amazing documentary movie on Brazil with the slum homes that are only a mile away from the beautiful resorts. They moved those people out of those slum homes so they could expand for the Olympics. They disrupted it, but what the president said at the time, who's since been impeached, said, we're going to build more hospitals, we're going to build more schools, and we're going to give 20% of the tickets away to the poor. Well, then came the gas prices tumbling. Hospitals are closing. Schools are closing, and they move these poor people out of their homes. They are angry. There's no money to feed them, take their kids to a hospital or a school, yet they're spending $10 billion on an Olympic stadium. You put that all together, you've got major political unrest when the cops aren't even going to support you because they haven't been paid either.
Again, we've been with Mike Karolczyk. He is CEO of Spartacus Strategies, a libertarian activist, a health guru, a sports analyst, and contributor to Daily Surge and ClashDaily.com. And, of course, if people want to reach out or keep the conversation rolling, at No Chubbies on Twitter.
Thanks, Joey. No Chubbies.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, take care. The Best of Wenz World continues right after this.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Hey, this is Dave Bray, America's Patriotic Rocker. Just giving you a shout-out. Make sure you stay tuned and listen in to K98 Talk.
Hey, this is the Deej, the sales energizer. And like you, I'm in Wenz World. It's a frightening place, but we're here. This is what I want you to do. Listen to the show, the whole show. And then when you're done, go to my website, remedysalesmatch.com. Fill out the subscription form for the newsletter, and I will send you a free book that's going to change your life. The Hitchhiker's Guide to Guaranteed Success. Do it after the show.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls? Start saving thousands in interest and fees and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
Time now for Sports Talk with Griffin Adkins.
Do you foresee a woman ever umpiring in Major League Baseball? If so, what year? Umpire, I could see that happening. It's happening in the NBA, it's happening in the NFL, so if it can happen there. And isn't there something, don't women have better eyesight? And God knows we could use some umpires with better eyesight instead of these old 80-year-old men out there who look like they're about to drop dead any second. I'm fine with a young woman who has good eyesight, can call some balls and strikes correctly, as long as she's willing to get yelled at by Bryce Harper. If she can stand that, hey man, put her in the game. Put me in, coach. Put her in, coach.
This has been Griffin Adkins with your Sports Report.
So excited to have a return visitor to Wenz World, author Kate Sukel. How are you today?
I am well, thank you. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm doing so well today. You know what? Last week we talked about the Summer of Risk hashtag campaign with National Geographic Books, pushing your new book, The Art of Risk, the New Science of Courage, Caution, and Chance, available wherever books are sold. And you know what? I really wanted to talk about the book that you wrote. It's called Your Brain on Sex, the Science Behind the Search for Love. Now, what brought Kate Sukel to write such a book?
Oh, that's the pathetic, sad story. That's the story of my divorce. And I think, a lot of people, you go through a bad breakup and you either hit the Ben and Jerry's or you become very boring and philosophical. And I did both. And, so I really was kind of wondering, I'm a brain nerd and I'm trained as a neuroscientist, and there's been all this great new work looking at love from the neurobiological perspective. Could that kind of explain why my relationship hadn't worked out? As much as Ben and Jerry could. And, also, could it explain, why love makes us so crazy, both when it starts and when it ends? And so that's kind of what inspired the book. And I ended up on this weird, wild journey that took me all kinds of places, where I learned about religious devotion, where I learned about parenting love, attraction, orgasms. It really kind of turned into a wild ride.
Awesome. So what did you learn the most out of that experience?
Oh, that basically love is just like a heroin addiction, and I think all of us know this, not when we fall in love, of course, because we're all sensible, rational people, but when we see like our best friend fall in love and they're in that early stage and all of a sudden they're blowing you off and all they talk about is their new boyfriend or girlfriend and they're so like crazy and boring and what have you. I mean, they really, you replace the name of their intended with crack or heroin, and it all works the same way. They are addicted, and it changes their behavior in weird, wild ways. And the thing is, Mother Nature, when she set up the brain this way, she wasn't thinking about, drugs like heroin or what have you. That she was thinking about the fact that humans are a social species. We do better when we, pair up with other people. We are, social beings. And so we have these things to not only help us propagate the species, but raise it. So, yeah.
That's really cool. You mentioned that you're a neuroscience geek, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So can you go into whatever level of detail that you feel comfortable with about the chemical interaction in our brains during that infatuation stage that you mentioned?
Oh, sure. So, of course, we have a few different neurochemicals in any behavior. Basically, your brain is one big bag of chemicals, so there's stuff going all the time. But when we're talking about love, some of the neurochemicals that come up of interest, one is dopamine. It's often called the pleasure chemical, but it's more like a motivation and learning chemical. It's something that's there that motivates us, that wants us to go after food, sex, love, all the greatest things in life. And then there are also two neurochemicals that are really important. One is called oxytocin, and you've probably heard a lot about it. Some people call it the cuddle chemical. It is something that brings us together. It helps to form pair bonds. There is another chemical called vasopressin, and this chemical has actually been linked to monogamy. And so, of course, whether or not humans are a socially or sexually monogamous species is still up for some debate, meaning, we do seem to be socially monogamous in that we pair up, but whether that means that we're all keeping in our pants with just our partner remains an open biological discussion.
Pause it right there, because you just hit a serious intersection in American society.
Right.
What has your research showed you about that very subject?
Right. So we seem to have these three different areas of the brain that both work for and against each other when it comes to love. One is the hypothalamus, which is the area of sexual behavior, desire, what have you. You also have an area called the ventral tegmental area, which is really involved with pair bonding, romantic love. And then you have areas that are involved with attachment. Now, all of these areas sort of talk to each other, fight with each other, what have you, and that's why you see the broad array of like soap opera behaviors when it comes to love. That's why you can be madly in love with somebody but still be eyeing up the person who sits next to you in the cubicle at work. It's why somebody who's been your friend for 10 years, you turn around and all of a sudden you think, they look pretty good. It's why somebody you were madly in love with for I don't know how long, all of a sudden, he feels more like your best friend than anything else. So these areas work well together, but they also kind of work against each other. And that's why we see such a broad array of different love behaviors. So in terms of we really do push sexual monogamy, and it's healthy for a lot of reasons. You can avoid diseases, do your family planning, what have you. But whether or not that's actually natural, that's open for debate. That said, I don't know that Mother Nature saw us, driving, Hondas and living split-level homes either. So what's natural may not be the right way to frame it anyway.
Again, if you're just joining us, we are with author Kate Sukel. She wrote the book, Your Brain on Sex, The Science Behind the Search for Love. It's available on her website, www.kaytsukel.com. Kate, I wanted to kind of reset and talk about the impact of religion in relationships and the tendency towards monogamy in that kind of arena.
Well, I think religion kind of falls into a lot of the category of society. It's what is the culture, what is the norm where you're from, and that's going to really help determine. We think of ourselves as sort of biological beings, and certainly we are, but when we talk about love or any other complex behavior, you're always going to have this sort of complicated dance between biology and instinct and then your environment. So I think religion, a lot of times, it really does press this idea that, there's one man for one woman. It's ordained by God. It's the way that it's supposed to be. But of course, anybody who looks at divorce statistics can tell you it doesn't work out that way, even in your church family. So, I think it's a matter of what's sort of expected from society versus what's actually what people can maintain. And, I talked a little bit earlier about all those areas of the brain, those reward areas that are involved with love that work against each other. But I should have also mentioned one more area of the brain, and that's our frontal lobes. And human beings have highly developed frontal lobes. This is the seat of executive control, decision making. And even if, we're happily married, madly in love with our spouse, but, that person at work is kind of interesting, we always have the ability to say, you know what, I don't want to do it. And that could be because of our religion. That could be because we're afraid of getting caught. That could be because, we don't want to hurt our spouse because we care about them so much. There are all kind of things that go into whether or not we engage in a particular behavior. And it's always going to be a combination of both biology and environment. So every time I hear a guy say, that he's that proverbial Siamese bumblebee flitting from flower to flower, that's the way it has to be, he's denying his nature if that's not the case. Again, Mother Nature, when the brain was designed, didn't necessarily set up life, have this kind of lifestyle in mind. And so we always have the ability to say no and to control those impulses and desires.
Such good stuff. Again, we've been with author Kate Sukel. She earned a bachelor's in cognitive psychology from Carnegie Mellon and a master's, right?
Yeah.
In engineering psychology from Georgia Tech. How cool is that?
Big nerd school, yay!
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And you can catch all of her stuff, her books, available on her website, www.kaytsukel, with Kayt being the first name and Sukel the last. Kate, it's been such a pleasure. I can't wait to have you back so we can talk about more stuff.
I'd be happy to.
The Best of Wenz World continues right after this.
Hey, it's Amber Berry from Westside Yoga. Connect with me on Twitter at Westside Yoga ATL. I'm in Wenz World and I love it.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Friends, as you know, I don't get super political on this show, but I do want to pay tribute to the three presumptive candidates for president: Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and Gary Johnson. Without further ado, my way of saying thank you.
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life. I have always fought for the same values and principles.
The server contains personal communications from my husband and me.
The only time I got on the internet, I did 2 emails. Otherwise, I found people said embarrassing things on emails.
And how many angels dance on the head of a pin?
White ones and red ones, some you can't disguise.
I believe that marriage is not just a bond, but a sacred bond between a man and a woman. I support marriage for lesbian and gay couples. I support it personally and as a matter of policy and law. I take a backseat to no one when you look at my record and standing up and fighting for progressive values.
You know, I get accused of being kind of moderate and center. I plead guilty.
Break! He hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one.
My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours. They are my own.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
Today, I'm very proud of myself.
What a great honor it must be for you to honor me tonight.
You'll have the great pleasure of voting for the man that will easily go down as the greatest president in the history of the United States. Me, Donald John Trump. Break!
Platform of a libertarian. Government's too big, it spends too much, it taxes too much, it takes away my individual freedom and liberty. Individual freedom and liberty.
I don't know who you are.
Google Gary Johnson. I really do believe that legalizing marijuana does make the world a better place.
Maybe I'm just out of my mind.
I wouldn't be doing this if there weren't the opportunity to win. Key, again, is being in the polls. I happen to think that most people in this country are libertarian. It's just that they don't know it.
Take me by the hand, take me somewhere new. I don't know who you are.
Yes, and very quickly on marijuana. Look, I think it makes the world a better place. On the medicinal side, you've got marijuana products that directly compete with legal prescription drugs that statistically kill 100,000 people a year. Not one documented death due to marijuana. And then on the recreational side, legalizing marijuana, in my opinion, will lead to less overall substance abuse because it's so much safer than everything else that's out there, starting with alcohol.
out of control. Atlanta Traffic Watch.
Atlanta traffic is out of control. Here in Wenz World, the one, the only, the voice of Atlanta traffic himself, Mr. Chris Monroe.
Live from the Atlanta Traffic Command Center.
So what's going on? What can we expect this weekend around the land of the never-ending crash?
The land of the never-ending crash. That's the downtown connector. And, they have started the resurfacing project overnights. They're working on the ramps, the on-ramps, and the off-ramps. But pretty soon they're going to be working on the main line, and that's going to be a mess. So that's going to be a problem. School goes back in next week for Cobb County, and that whole northwest corridor on the Expressway 75 is going to be a nightmare once school gets back in. And I'm predicting that we will see most mornings travel times at an hour or more from Kennesaw to downtown, Midtown. Every single day will be the norm.
Oh, my gosh.
And this weekend, you asked, the West Expressway inbound 20 from Douglas County, it's coming in from Six Flags.
Right.
You know where we have another land of the never-ending crash there at 285, exit 51?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's because that's a horrible interchange. It was built like 50 years ago, and they're going to be trying to make it better. They're going to restripe it, and they're going to put traffic delineators in.
Oh, please explain what that is for the audience.
Well, it's those little plastic kind of separator things. They're kind of flexible. They're next to the express lane on 85 in Gwinnett County to kind of separate that. I mean, you can run over them and not hurt anything.
So, but the goal is to keep these last-minute mergers away, right?
Yeah, right. They don't want people, like, swerving over, which they do. So the over-under on that's probably going to last about 2 weeks before those things are in pieces, and they're all over the road there on I-20 from the West Expressway. And that resurfacing project continues out there, by the way, on the west side. So
we're probably screwed on 575 and 75 for the foreseeable future, right?
That's going to be ugly. This school season is probably going to be bad because at the end of last school season, we were seeing, and we were seeing travel times in an hour, 50 minutes to an hour every day, Wade Green to 285, hour 15 downtown. So.
And as you mentioned before, there isn't a rush hour. It's just rush hours, right?
No, it starts at 6 every day.
Yep. And
I call it the 4 quarters of the rush hour. You got 6, 7, 8, 9, goes all the way to 10 o'clock. You get about 30 minutes of break, and then it starts all over again. It's just it's out of control, Wenz, I'm telling you.
Oh, I believe it. Chris, you walked in today, and I kind of felt this heaviness on your heart, and I want to
yes, Lord,
give us time to confess. So without further ado, it's Chris's confession.
I spend a lot of time at the Traffic Command Center, and it's hard for me to get up and move around because I'm in there, you know, and you can't really get up and take a break. And you're locked to a report that's coming up. You know, you got a live report. So sometimes, nature calls. And nature calls, and you're squeezing, and you're pinching, and you're squirming, and you're sweating. You're trying to hold that tide back from coming, but it ain't going to stop. And then you try to sneak the gas out beside it. The SFS breaks down. The fart separator. Yes. It broke down recently in the Traffic Command Center, and unfortunately, some of the said material ended up in the underwear, which ended up in the trash here at the radio station.
Well, Chris, since you've become so vulnerable, I want to match that story. It was one time at church camp. This is Chaco Springs, Alabama, back in high school.
Oh, Lord.
I was wearing my prized 1996 Allen Iverson jersey.
Okay.
76er red.
Right.
And I went to play some hoops, which were about 3/4 to a whole mile away from our condo, I guess you could say, were the courts. And I felt the grumble coming on. You know the grumble?
Oh, yeah. I know that grumble.
Post tater tot and lemonade grumble.
It's loud. You can hear it, and then you go to squeezing.
Yep. Every voice said, head back now. But no, I had to play an extra game of 21 because I had to win, right? I didn't win. I still lost. And the loss continued on the way back when it just started pouring out.
Oh!
And I was mortified, Chris Monroe. Let me tell you, I got about 15 to 20 feet off the beaten path in the grass there by myself, poop running down my leg. People walking by, I'm pretending to pray because naturally I'm in church camp, so it makes sense.
Yes,
hey, he's
Lord.
by himself, he's really spending some quality time with me, saith the Lord, and it was anything but. I wiped my leg off on the grass and waddled back to the condo. Threw everything on me in the bathtub. It looked like 1,000 pieces of M&Ms inside this bathtub. And I doused those clothes with cologne and threw them in my suitcase And that's my confession here in Wenz World.
And that is the Wenz Weight Loss Challenge, because now everybody is sick to their stomachs. And I want to make for the record this note that my situation, quote unquote, was not this hideous as yours at church camp. However, I did have to pull over on the side of the road when I was moving myself one time. I was turning a rental van and had to squat by the mailbox at the rental return. And right there, I left them a present.
Did you go Yobagoya on him?
I did. And this has been a dual confession of the voice and Wenz.
In Wenz World.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network. Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls? Start saving thousands in interest and fees and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Time now for Sports Talk with Griffin Adkins.
Do you think Chip Kelly would make an effective cult leader? I think he'd be a good cult leader as long as it was, young kids.
This has been Griffin Adkins with your Sports Report.
Friends, we've all seen the beauty pageants, whether it be Miss America or Miss Universe. Those girls up on stage, nervous as heck, waiting to see if the judges deem them worthy enough to be crowned. But their worth isn't determined by looks alone. It's also gauged by their answers to trivial questions. As you've probably noticed, the responses seem very predictable and trite. But what if the models actually told us what they really mean? The following is an excerpt from the 2015 Miss America pageant.
Miss Georgia, if you were granted one wish, what would that wish be?
Oh, that's an easy question. My one wish would be world peace.
Miss Georgia, what do you really mean?
Well, that's easy. My one wish would be to get my fill at the Shoney's Sunday breakfast buffet and not have to throw it back up.
Right! I never really thought that Red Bull would give me wings, but I did jump on the lawsuit brought about by Benjamin Carruthers. His claim against Red Bull was that despite drinking the potion for the last 10 years, he never had any wings or enhanced athletic or intellectual performance. I'll tell you what Red Bull did give me is hella back fat. All that sugar, and you know how hard it is to get rid of back fat. I mean, there is somewhat of a bright side to it. Hearing portions of back fat slap each other is somewhat motivating. It's kind of like having a crowd behind you cheering you on. The original lawsuit, around $13 million, 6.5 of that going towards an account for the 1.5 million consumers that had purchased a Red Bull since 2002. I do agree that the lawsuit is nonsensical, but at the same time, advertisers try to dupe us all the time, successfully, I might add. And people's is dumb if they think they're going to get wings from an energy drink. But we do live in a world where TV commercials have to put a disclaimer at the bottom saying little green men aren't actually scrubbing the sides of your gums and teeth during Operation Slaughter Morning Breath. When I spit that stuff in the drain, all I see is green foamy stuff. I never see any little green men fighting for their lives as they get pulled down the drain, living such a heroic life in an effort to save my teeth and gums from the evils of gingivitis. Sorry, I got caught up in the moment. Moral of the story, thank you, Red Bull, for the check. And thank you, America, for the ability to capitalize upon frivolous lawsuits.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Hey, this is Dave Bray, America's Patriotic Rocker. Just giving you a shout out. Make sure you stay tuned and listen in to K98 Talk.
The leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98Talk.com.
Football season right around the corner. We're in the off-season OTAs, minicamp approaching. So I think it's applicable to talk about fantasy football right around the bend. With me on the phone is Dreamco Design's own Jay Correa. How you doing today, Jay?
I'm doing pretty good.
Jay Correa is founder and owner of Dreamco Design. They're a development company that designs, develops, and markets websites and apps for the fantasy football sports industry. I guess you could say fantasy football, kind of a big deal, right, Jay?
Yeah, it's huge, and it's beyond just fantasy football. It's fantasy sports in general. I mean, baseball and stuff, too. So we can't forget the other sports, even though football is the juggernaut.
True that. So apparently they're having congressional hearings on fantasy sports. When that comes to my mind, I think Uncle Sam's looking for a way to pinch the pockets of those who participate. Am I onto something there?
You are to a degree, and this is a bigger issue. This really is a government versus business issue, and fantasy football and fantasy sports just happens to be the plot here put into the spotlight. It really comes down to states looking to potentially capitalize on it. That's the big thing, not necessarily federally. So fantasy sports in general is currently under assault, you could say, in the United States. On the federal level, we have this law called UEJA, and it's really why FanDuel and DraftKings became as big as they have. There's basically a carve-out in a law that allows fantasy sports to operate and be considered games of skill and be played for money. Whereas on a state-specific level, gaming ends up coming down to what the states want to do with it. So you're seeing states put in place new laws and regulations for the industry. And fantasy sports has been around for a long time. People have been playing, fantasy football, fantasy baseball for decades. But FanDuel and DraftKings have really ramped up the industry and put it on the spotlight, especially on the money side. So that's what's attracted states to saying, hang on a second, what's going on here? We want our take, and you're pretty much spot on.
What are the states right now, as you know them, that are trying to kibosh FanDuel and DraftKings?
Sure. So the biggest misconception is that this is only about daily fantasy sports. People are like, oh, I play some Yahoo season-long fantasy league. I don't need to worry about this legal stuff going on. That is not true. We're talking about the entire industry right now being at stake, and things are changing. In terms of the state-by-state level, there have always been a few states that have completely prohibited fantasy sports for money. Arizona, Washington State, to name a couple of the bigger ones. They feel that it may conflict with some of the tribal gaming that they have in the state. But for the most part, fantasy sports has been okay. It's been legal. You can play it for money, and there hasn't been an issue with it. And Nevada and New York were really the first two that started all of the stuff that people have seen in the media now as it relates to trying to stonewall the industry. And apparently, every state has a different definition of what the word gambling means. Some will say it's a complete chance, complete risk. Others will say, well, if it's just a little more chance than skill, or if there's any element of chance at all, it's gambling. So New York State's really what put it in the spotlight, and on a state-by-state basis right now, there is legislation unfolding across the country, with New York and Illinois being the two big ones that are in the spotlight right now.
All right, so can you see a possibility of overlap with the question of, is fantasy football gambling, or is fantasy football a game of skill?
Yeah, and that's been a big thing that we're trying to overcome as an industry. Fantasy sports is a game of skill. It takes skill to know who to pick and when to pick them based on salary cap and all these other things that happen when you're putting your team together. If you walk into a casino and pull the handle on a slot machine, it's totally random. You have no influence at all whatsoever on what's going to take place. With fantasy sports, you do have an impact on what's going to take place because your skill, knowledge, insight, predictions, all of those types of things are going to be put to use. So if you played some, kid off the street that didn't know much about football or something, you're obviously going to have a much better chance at beating him. It's because skill's involved. So the skill versus gambling thing has come up in different states. And again, this is an industry on the business side that's been explosive with growth. Now we're looking at stonewalling it and potentially setting up maybe a duopoly or making it illegal for people to play fantasy sports, which is absolutely absurd.
Again, if you're just joining us, we're with author Jay Correa. He authored the book Daily Fantasy Sports. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, but most importantly, check out the website, www.bookdfs.com. He's a member of the Legislative Affairs Committee for the Fantasy Sports Trade Association. Now, you mentioned earlier the overlap between gambling and skill, and as you were speaking, I could only help but think about my first two draft picks last year, which were C.J. Anderson and Eddie Lacy, both of which underperformed dramatically. And just for the record, we don't play for money. But when you mention the fact that even something as simple as a non-monetary game such as Yahoo Fantasy Football could get shut down, how on earth can they possibly regulate that if there's no money to start a league on Yahoo? How could they, actually shut that down?
Sure. So Yahoo does have daily fantasy games now that do involve money, so they do have an interest in paid games as well. But on the advertising end, every state is unique in terms of what legislation they bring up. So right now in New York State, there are a pair of bills. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. But one of the two bills discusses advertising revenue, and any revenue that's made in the state, or period, if it involves advertising, that you may be subject to these regulations. So it's a bit ambiguous, but that would read as, someone like Yahoo that offers free games that makes all of its money via ads for people that play because of all the eyeballs they have. They too are now going to be subject to these license fees and additional taxes and background checks and all these arduous things that are getting in the way of an industry provider that people have known for a long time and haven't had much of an issue with.
Now, do you really see Yahoo shutting it down even if it costs them a couple bucks a year?
No, I don't think Yahoo will. However, they are definitely fighting tooth and nail to make sure that those types of things don't happen. The big issue is we don't want to create a duopoly or perhaps maybe have just three companies where the government has gotten in the way of small business and innovation. There are a lot of things that the free market can take care of. It can give consumers more choices on where to play, how to play, different unique games. There's a lot of reasons why we want to keep this industry growing. But if the government gets in the way and says, hey, you know what? Well, we're going to have all these really burdensome regulations and extremely high fees, then they're going to set up a situation where only a couple of larger companies are able to participate. And that's not good for business, and it's not good for consumers either.
So where do you see the fantasy football game, say, 5 years from now?
I think you're going to see more stuff lean towards real-time fantasy sports. There's always a cat-mouse game when it comes to the way the government works with, businesses and the economy. So the government right now is having its turn on saying, this is what you need to do. They're either prohibiting it or they're setting it up where it's very regulatory and it's difficult to work with. So because of that, I think you're going to see businesses say, you know what, we're going to find ways to circumvent these things, have different ways to monetize our games that there's no laws applicable towards yet, and we're going to start doing things that are a bit more along the lines of real-time fantasy sports, where people are making predictions for every baseball at-bat, like real-time voting on Twitter that you see for political endeavors, or you're going to see people predicting each play during a football game where you're going to be connected to the action even faster. And to me, it seems like the next evolutionary type of a step, the same way we went from season-long to daily, we're going to have daily to maybe real-time. And it doesn't mean the other two are going to be replaced by any means. I just think you'll end up seeing all three.
What can fantasy football players do to help keep things legal?
The first thing I would say is, get the book. There's a lot of information in there, and there's actually a whole chapter dedicated to what consumers can do to fight back. For an example, emailing legislators and whatnot. So there's a lot of information in there for it, but more or less it's just talking about it. That's where I always suggest everybody starts. Have a conversation. Tell your friends. Get on Facebook and say, hey, did you know that they're trying to ban fantasy football? Simple things like that brings awareness to the community of players out there. There are 57 million people in North America that play fantasy sports, and if people start talking about how this may be jeopardized, elected officials are not going to want to be on the wrong end of that equation.
We've been talking the business of fantasy football with author Jay Correa. He wrote the book Daily Fantasy Sports, available at Barnes & Noble's, Amazon, and also on his website, www.bookdfs.com. Everybody, let's get involved here and get the conversation going. That way fantasy football will be around for our kids and their kids. It's a lot of fun. Jay, thank you so much for your time, man. Much obliged.
Thanks for having me. And if you need anything else, just reach out.
Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls, start saving thousands in interest and fees, and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
the leader in talk radio on the internet, right here on K98Talk.com. You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Hey, this is Dave Bray, America's Patriotic Rocker. Just giving you a shout out. Make sure you stay tuned and listen in to K98 Talk.